The name of the community is Beyond One.
I love it.
Beyond one source of income, beyond one income stream. Why are we in 2025 and treating our corporate or financial stability in the same way, right?
How do you leverage, and you talked about like, you're using AI as much as you can, but are there other tools and other things that you do to kind of really help out? Welcome to another episode of SMB Stars. Today's guest is Stephen Hart, who I'm super excited to talk about. Stephen and I used to be neighbors, a few years ago before, moved houses. Stephen, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's awesome for us to have this chat.
Yeah. And Stephen, you are an experienced podcaster. So, like for me, I'm just starting out. So please bear with some of the things with us. But, super excited to have you on the show. Why don't we kick things off, Stephen, by you giving a quick intro?
Absolutely. So I'm a marketing leader and coach. I'm a story brand certified guide. And over the past, I'd say, dozen years, was actually in marketing leadership more recently in the world of cybersecurity and heading up marketing for the world's largest cybersecurity training firm. And just recently decided to step aside and focus 100% on building a marketing agency as well as building community membership. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But I'm also a creator, well known within the LinkedIn space. LinkedIn actually brought me in as one of their first creators in their Creator Accelerator program. And as
Oh,
Kamal just shared, I'm a podcaster. I host and founded what was then the Trailblazers.fm podcast. Today, we've rebranded as I Am Black Success. And so Jamaican, and that saying that Jamaicans have many jobs. That's me, Kamal.
that's awesome. That's awesome. I love it. I love it. And it's actually good, Stephen, to have many jobs and to be doing many things. So let's start. I want to hear about your journey from being and heading marketing for a cybersecurity training company to now having your own agency, building this community, doing the podcast. How was that journey? What was going through your mind when you kind of decided to, okay, I'm done with this job. Now I'm going to do something of my own. How did you crystallize the idea of what you wanted to do? And how did you think about okay, when was the right time? What was a trigger point?
It's all great questions. So I should preface and say I'm a serial entrepreneur. So I've bought and built and sold businesses in the past. Came back to corporate, having sold a business back in 2012, and came back to corporate. Started having kids, and just decided to anchor myself in the corporate space. The podcast I launched happened back in 2016 as really wanting to start creating content, enjoyed being a consumer of podcasts, and while gainfully employed as a marketer, started having interviews and building a community around Black leaders and entrepreneurs. And what happened, Kamal, was that the cybersecurity firm I was with actually approached me wanting to begin creating new media content, wanting to do more videos, more podcasts. And so they brought me in knowing that I had that expertise. And I've since created 3 or 4 different corporate properties, 3 podcasts, and a video based program for them. And that went really well. But the in the last 2 years, I would say, started having conversation with a number of leaders who would approach me about building their personal brand. And I'd say, at about the point of COVID, we started seeing quite a bit of layoffs, right? And so there are people who started approaching me and saying, "Hey, could I get you to help me build a personal brand?" And really, truly, what the brand was helping to facilitate was helping them to tell their story, helping them to begin to create content that would amplify the visibility of their offering in this space. And they started creating alternate streams of income. And it was a
Nice.
light bulb moment for me because I quickly realized as we move forward to where we are today, where layoffs are so rampant, now we're seeing layoffs even in the government sector, even
Yeah.
beyond enterprise.
Yeah.
There's so many people that are getting let go. And unfortunately, they have no other source of income. And I relate this in conversations to growing up in Jamaica. My parents grew up in a rural area of Jamaica. They would prepare meals in an outdoor kitchen, one pot, one burner, right? Why are we in 2025 and treating our corporate or financial stability in the same way, right? One job, one source of income. We'd never do that
Right.
with our 401k and invest all our money in one stock.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Right.
what we do. And so I personally have always been wired to having multiple streams of income. But I think that even if you're in a 9 to 5 role, I think as working professionals, it's vital today for us not to have all the burners on at the same time, but create a burner. Begin to understand an inventory, especially if you've been in a career for 20, 30 years. You have talents, you have wisdom, you have skills that you can convert into coaching, into speaking, into consulting, into other offerings that you have framed and you have the ability to offer. It doesn't have to be something that's on all the time, but you have it there. And God forbid you're laid off. Maybe you're not replacing your entire income, but if
But
you
there's
have
something.
$2 or $3,000 coming in, you could pay the mortgage,
Yeah.
right? It would
Yeah.
take some of that pressure off. And so
Yeah.
I've begun to lay foundation to creating a community membership, which we're launching in April,
Okay.
here to serving working professionals while they're still in a 9 to 5. Let's start doing that work. Let's start building the brand.
Okay.
Let's start creating the offerings and position that you can turn it on and low, begin to get a feel for what you want to do, right? And have that if you just want it as a reserve or if you want to, really truly
Nice. Nice.
position for a pivot.
Okay. So the marketing agency that you launched is not helping businesses with their marketing,
It
but helping
is.
individuals or
This is
and
a separate
individuals.
offering, right? So
Okay.
I do have a marketing agency where I am helping businesses
Okay.
with my superpowers related to
Uh-huh.
video, related to branding, related to web
Okay.
storytelling.
Okay.
And that's the side where I mentioned in the intro that I'm story brand certified. Story brand, building a story brand is a book authored by
Okay.
Donald Miller, and
Uh-huh.
it's centered on
Oh my gosh, I'm
story.
actually reading that now.
Are you?
Yeah, I just started reading that. Yeah. It has like those exercises. So I'm starting to do my first one. Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, that is such a
I'm
coincidence.
sharing with Kamal. I don't know if you also have an audio version of this, but yeah, I'm sharing a cover of the book.
No, I have a book. I have a physical book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been a big believer in Donald Miller. I read the first iteration of Building a Story Brand back in 2017,
Uh-huh.
and he's since authored so many different books. He is at the core a best-selling author of several memoirs. He was a memoirist many years ago, and started helping businesses to look at a story framework to be able to articulate your message. Challenge we have as small business owners is sometimes we confuse our message, right? And if we confuse, we lose, right? So we have to
I like that line.
clarify
If we
our
confuse, we
message.
lose.
If you confuse, you lose. So we
Yeah.
really do need to clarify our message so that our customers do listen to what we have to offer. And so I'm able to help businesses, and I presently do that.
Okay.
I have several clients on retainer, institutions like American University, work with several coaches and other small business owners
Okay.
to clarify the message, help them with their website, their email nurture sequence, as well as different brand elements.
Okay. Okay, that's awesome. So that's the marketing agency.
That's
And
the agency.
then you also have this other part where you're helping individuals with their personal branding using
Correct.
LinkedIn as a primary tool.
LinkedIn is a great tool for anybody today.
Okay.
I used to say that your personal website was your online head HQ.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that shifted. I think LinkedIn is now the anchor point
I would
because
agree.
I don't know if you network much in person at events, but now I go to an event and instead of exchanging business cards, people will open their LinkedIn QR code and say, let's connect on LinkedIn.
Yes.
And I think
Absolutely.
that's a great place to be because somebody may or may not come to your website. It comes to
Yeah.
your website once and they're gone and they're maybe not coming back to your website again for a bit. But
Yeah.
people are on LinkedIn every single day.
Yep.
And so if you have a good presence on LinkedIn, you've really done the job to build and optimize your profile as well as creating content consistently. Somebody's more likely to see you again and again and again. And of
Yeah.
course, we know the more they see you, the more they see your offering, they're more likely to share, to talk about you, and to do business with you.
Okay. Okay. All right. So you help, folks with their LinkedIn presence and kind of building their personal brand. And then based on that, you're also now starting this community where you're going to be helping existing professionals kind of figure out what else is there in their inventory to be able to create additional revenue streams.
That's correct. I'm calling this
Okay.
community Beyond One.
Beyond
Beyond one
one.
source of income.
I love the name. Look at you. The marketing genius is at work.
That's it.
Totally. Like, you confuse, you lose beyond one. I love it. I love it so
Yeah.
much. Okay, awesome. So, Stephen, you talked about how you are a serial entrepreneur. You sold a business in 2012, went back to corporate. So, when you were leaving to start this agency and to do the work that you're currently doing, was financing and funding like a big part of how you're going to sustain yourself while you're building your business out? How did you think about that? Because you work with many small business owners, right? Like that is one of the, like, if you're laid off, then you're kind of forced to do it. But until you're laid off, you have a steady stream of income that's coming in. So how do you think about the financial aspect of starting your own business?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a great question. So I will tell you, I invested very heavily in myself over the last 18 months. Really started looking at positioning for this shift, for this pivot. The challenge we often find, right? There's never a perfect time, and you probably waited too long by the time you've made a decision to shift. For me, I invested in story brand certification a year ago and started really building out my menu of products. So, one of the things I would encourage for those of you who are entrepreneurs and for those of you giving thought to making this shift, one of the things I think is important that we start by doing is not building a logo, is not building a website. It is really thinking about what are the offerings you're going to provide to your target audience, to your ideal client. And so for me, I thought about what would a menu of products look like.
Okay.
So come on, a lot of times when we are, especially as coaches, say, "Oh, I'm a coach." What does that mean to you? Right? It's like walking. Don always says it's like walking in a restaurant. And you ask them what's on the menu, and they say protein.
Food. Or
Right?
protein. Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
so it's getting very clear about, well, okay, you're a coach, but what do you actually provide as a service? And so I created several offerings. We're talking about this right now, but I offer personal branding services. I offer LinkedIn profile optimization, done for you LinkedIn profile optimization services. I offer video and podcasting services. I'm building the Beyond One community. These are all offerings that I provide access to.
Okay.
And once I've gotten clarity on, okay, here are all the different things that I'm going to put on my menu, then I can also reverse engineer and say, okay, if I'm charging, $3,000 to do a custom brand service for a client, how many of those do I need in the course of the year? So I could say, I'm going to do a dozen of those, and that's 36,000 right there. I could then say I'm going to charge $1,500 for access to the community, and I'm going to bring 150 people on. And you can start to reverse engineer a path to whatever your targeting revenue is for the year. If you said, I want to generate 250 grand for the year, you now have the ability to reverse engineer a path there.
Okay.
Right. And so that's where it started for me last year.
Okay.
It was creating those menu of products, beginning to talk with potential clients, right? Developing a client list and beginning to have that conversation. For me, I was blessed to have to be able to onboard some really amazing clients early. I have a consulting relationship with American University. I was able to have speaking engagements, some really large data security firms, and then on the smallest scale, doing LinkedIn profile optimization work and brand work for personal brands
Got it.
of
Okay.
influencers. So that's where it started. And to answer the question, the shift out from corporate, not mincing my words or just being very blunt, it got toxic. And so, I got to a place where I just needed to leave. And so I left before things were perfect.
Okay.
I left before things were perfect, and I didn't have my income replaced, but I had the menu of products. I had the infrastructure built. The foundation was there. And the moment I stepped away, those clients came in the door, and I'm already in a good position coming into this year in
Okay.
Q1 that I'm already in a six-figure
Nice.
stance and looking at several other prospects coming on board. So,
Nice.
sometimes I think we have a mindset of, okay, I need to see that first before I'm obedient to taking that step out. And I think the reverse is true. I think, for me at least, I took a step in faith, right? I took that step in obedience to say, I've done the work.
Yeah.
Let me have faith that I'm going to step out
Yeah.
and
build
the work is going to come, and the work came.
that. Okay.
The work came
Okay.
faster than I thought it would,
Okay.
and but I created the space
Okay.
for me to then focus 100% on it.
Yeah, yeah. I like that. This is, I think, probably like a unique answer that I've heard in all of the interviews I've done, which is really having a structure around. I love this kind of like this menu of items. Like, if in your case, it's a services business, but if you're even launching like a products-based business, like what is your product portfolio? Like, what does it look like? What are you selling? Who is the right target market? And then I love this idea of like, okay, how many do I need to be able to get to a certain revenue, and then working backwards from that. That's super fantastic. I'm sure our audience is going to love kind of like thinking through about their own journey of moving from a corporate to starting a business in this manner. Stephen, like you talked about how you were blessed to have some of these clients come in faster than you thought, which also speaks to, probably relationships you built while you were still working a full-time job. And that is, again, like, one of the big things, right? Like when you start a business, okay, how are you going to get to your customers, and what channels should we use, and how do you go about like getting people who are going to be interested in your products/services? So what advice would you have for anyone? Like, how did, like, you got your first customer, I guess, from the network that you had already built, but for someone starting out, like what could they do to kind of get their first few customers in?
So I have an unfair advantage. I'm a content marketer at the core, and a content creator. But one of the things that I often will coach my own clients to do is to give thought to, look, where do you want visibility? Where do you want to be known as a thought leader in your space, in front of those ideal clients that you want to court, that you want to serve, that you'd love to serve? And so for me, that looks like video, podcasts, LinkedIn, personal branding. Those are four what I call pillars or themes, core themes that I really want to be seen as a thought leader in front of small business owners, in front of influencers and experts. And so, what I often encourage, and you could, if you're listening to us right now, grab a pen and paper or open your note taking app and write 4 times 12. And so, we're going to document what those 4 core themes are. And then, for each of those core themes, what I'd like you to do is to document 12 questions, 12 challenges, 12 things that around that topic. So for video, around video for a small business owner, what's keeping that small business owner up at night? Your small business owner is listening to me right now. When we talk about video, when we talk about everyone's talking about starting a podcast, you're thinking about it. What's standing in the way of you being able to launch a podcast? What are you actually searching in Google right now as it relates to that topic? I document 12 of those questions, those challenges for each of those themes, and that's 48 pieces, 48 line items that I now have the opportunity to go create content around, which is going to be tremendous value to the audience that I want to serve. And so you can either look at this one of two ways. If creating content is just consuming and it's exhausting for you, you could create one piece of content every single week on each of these, and you basically just laid out a whole year of content, 48 weeks. Or you could say, you know what, Stephen, I'm going to go hard. And you could create 4 pieces of content every week for a quarter. And the likelihood is those 48 pieces aren't time sensitive. So you can cycle that content again in the next quarter. On a platform like LinkedIn, if you're cycling through that, guess what? The event planners who are looking for speakers on those pillars, they're going to notice, you know what? Kamal's actually coming up in my feed every single time around this particular topic. We should probably reach out to her and see if she wants to come talk at our conference. Maybe we should reach out to her and see if she'd consult. Maybe. And so, look, that's the way that I generate speaking revenue, workshop revenue for private events and for conferences, because I'm in that feed. I'm in people's feed every single week on platforms like LinkedIn. And that's actually what provides those prospects reaching out to me and saying, hey, can I have a conversation with you? Seem to know exactly what you're talking about on this topic. So that'd be my advice based on your area of expertise. Take that and run with it.
Okay. That is, I love, Stephen, how you have frameworks for everything you do and kind of you break things down. That is really fantastic. Okay, so the new year has just started, 2025. When I say just started, we're almost we're in March now.
Almost in Q2, right?
Almost in Q2, but sure, it just started. So what are some of the challenges for you in your business this year? And I'm sure you have a framework for it. How are you planning on tackling some of those challenges this year?
You know, the big challenge that I'm up against right now, and I was talking about this quite a bit last week in one of my masterminds, is that I am often running and I'm leveraging AI as best I can. I'm leveraging systems as best I can. I'm trying to SOP all the things I can, but I'm one person and I'm not yet at the place where I feel comfortable onboarding additional help because I want that revenue to be able to advertise and do other things and build a community that I'm trying to launch. But I'm one person. So the challenge I'm up against right now is managing time. Right? Managing time. It's not so much, and I have additional prospects coming my way. And the thought right now is, how am I going to service all these people, right? In terms of time. So I'm constantly looking at, how do I provide more one-on-many type services? And that's why I'm looking at the community as a great play for scaling and growth, because I can be one-on-many, in that type of environment versus taking on a large influence or taking on a business that's going to be a heavy time commitment on my part and can't really scale too many of those types of clients. So now I'm getting very strategic about how I manage my calendar. What days I do discovery calls, what days I do strategy sessions, what days I commit to my community build, and
Okay.
really be conscious about that because even beyond all of this, Kamal knows I have a family life. I have two very active kids that
Yes,
I'm an
and lovely
active,
kids, if I may say so.
thank you, I'm an active dad. So there is the balance that has to happen
Correct.
also beyond work. So that's been the challenge of the year so far.
Okay, okay. Well, thank you, Stephen, for taking out the time and coming on this podcast and prioritizing
100%.
this on the on your calendar. Okay, so I've heard this community now a few times. You've talked about this. Can you go a little bit deeper for our audience? What is this community? Who is it for? What benefits are they going to get? Starting, you mentioned in April, right? So talk a bit
Starting
about
in
more
April.
about this community.
Absolutely. So the community is designed. The name of the community is Beyond One.
I love it.
Beyond one source of income, beyond one income stream, right? We want to create a safe space for working professionals. Those of you on a 9 to 5 who are you're doing work you love today, and you're earning income and you're comfortable. But truth be told, if you lost your job tomorrow, if you were laid off, or even if something happens health wise, right? I've come across that as well, and whether that's you or a child or a parent, and you have to leave the comfort of that salary, that paycheck. How do you provide? And so a lot of people have this conversation with Kamal. They're like, I don't know. I don't know what I could do. I love the idea of starting a business. I don't know what to do next. I've personally invested in a lot of courseware over the years. I invest in myself every single year. By the way, that's a good point to note. I probably personally, not to be reimbursed by any company, I commit anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 a year in myself, and that's always been a benefit to me to focus on my personal development. But what I want to do is create a space that not only are you getting that education, because the courseware is good, the knowledge is good, but the challenge that we all have is that we're busy. So you might do the course today, but implementation of the course doesn't happen tomorrow because you got to go back and get caught up on all the work you missed for the two
Yeah,
days you took doing a course.
yeah.
But as you're working over the coming year, how do you get that support? Where do you find accountability? How do you access feedback? And so the idea behind Beyond One is to provide both the knowledge so that we can talk through what we were talking about before with a menu of products and being able to reverse engineer and to create the right offering, and to access the frameworks that I know will help you move the needle much faster than if you do it trial and error. But then beyond that, you have a cohort of other like-minded individuals who are also building alongside you. So you have a community there. You also have the support, the accountability, and the feedback from myself and other experts who I'm bringing in to this community on a monthly basis to say, hey, if you want to be a speaker, let's have a panel conversation. Let's have a round table with other speakers who are crushing it, that you can pick their mind, you can hear, wisdom from them and others. So community is one that is going to provide you that knowledge around creating those income streams, but is also going to provide you the accountability, the support, the feedback, and more.
Okay, okay. Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, so really helping people understand how else could they be generating additional sources of incomes with the skill sets they have and the skill sets that they could develop, and then kind of helping them figure out the implementation part of it, the execution of that piece. That's fantastic. And I'm assuming it is going to be a paid community, right? So
It is.
members will pay to be part of the community.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's fantastic. I'm sure a lot of folks are going to find a lot of value given the current circumstances that, unfortunate circumstances that we're in where, there's just rampant layoffs, every single day. Cool. I guess kind of like, we're almost at time here, Stephen. So final two questions for you. So the first one is you talked about managing time, right? Which is one of the key challenges for you this year. How do you leverage, and you talked about like, you're using AI as much as you can, but are there other tools and other things that you do to kind of really help out with your day to day, make sure it is not just efficient, but also productive? So what are some of the tools and technologies you use to kind of help you with that?
Yeah, I will tell you that from a service delivery standpoint, I do video subscription services for a couple different businesses right now. Actually, I have three retainer clients on video subscription, and that would not happen without AI. And so I leverage a couple different AI tools that help me to fast track my video editing.
Okay.
And I'm also a GPT user. I leverage GPT quite a bit.
Okay.
I'm not somebody that, I once had quite a number of copywriters working for me who could not stomach the output of GPT. I'm not somebody that takes exactly what GPT generates and puts it
And put it
somewhere.
out there.
But I find that the back end, all right, not client facing, but the back end usage of GPT is powerful, and being able to leverage that to get a lot done quickly has been helpful. And then in terms of systems, I am crushing it right now with tools like Asana to manage
Okay.
my tasks and task load, as well as for each client, leveraging simple things like a Google Sheets and tabs that really keep everything for one client
Okay.
in one view, as well as I'm a Google Chrome browser person.
Okay.
And one of the hacks that I love right now, Kamal, you have the groups that you can group tabs.
Yeah.
So I've had like all these windows. I have three screens that I'm looking at, and I'll
Okay.
have all these windows, and I can't find where everything is. And so what I've started doing
Uh-huh.
is whenever I'm talking to a client, every tab
Uh-huh.
associated with a client lives in one client group. And so once I'm done with my client, I close the group.
So everything
And
just closes.
and so it just keeps all of my client tabs in one group. And
Okay.
when I'm coming back to doing work on that client, I can open a new window, open that group just for the client, and
Okay.
close it when I'm done. And it's cleaned up my desktop so much
Okay.
and allows me to stay focused because if I'm
Yeah.
working on one client, I'm not looking at anything else.
Okay.
So
Okay.
hopefully that hack will help your listeners.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I love it. I love how specific you are with, all of your answers. It's very, very it's very useful. And I guess the last question, let's end with this. How have you changed personally from I know you were an entrepreneur before, then you went back to corporate, now you're back at this. How have you evolved? What would you say like, your biggest personal learning has been through this?
I will end and share this, and I'm going to shift away from business for a second. In December 2019, my dad suffered a stroke, and it was what kind of iced my content creation for quite a bit as a podcaster. And in January 2021, a year later, he suffered a second stroke right here in the room I'm recording in.
Oh my gosh.
And that was a challenge. And mentally, right, having to be a caretaker took on a completely different chapter of life, being a sort of a sandwich bit where you're taking care of kids, you're taking care of a parent. that was a challenge. And so I entered the season and everything that happened with COVID. I never prioritized my mental health as much as I was forced to in that season. And so, look, for where we are right now, as business owners, I cannot stress enough how important it is to prioritize both your physical as well as your mental health. I'm from Jamaica. Caribbean men don't do well with the conversation around therapy, right? And so when first recommended to me by my wife, I cussed her out and was like, nothing's wrong with me. And, thankfully, 5 years later, I talk to a therapist every 2 weeks. And it's not because there's something wrong, but it helps me to organize my thought. And as you've gathered from the last, half of us discussing things, I'm somebody that deals good with structure and organization. And so it just helps me to organize my thought, to be able to show up as my best self for my clients, for my business, for my family, for my marriage, for my kids. And so that's what's changed. That also was a catalyst for me to say enough is enough with the work stress that I was experiencing and prioritizing my own wellness and my own well-being and my own self-care. And so putting that as a priority allowed me to be able to show up and to be my best self in these other areas.
I love it, Stephen. What a way to end the show. And I love that you touched upon this topic. The mental toll starting and running your business takes is real. And a lot of the times we don't want to talk about it because we don't want to come across as being weak. Because as business owners, as leaders, we want to be strong. So I love that you one acknowledged it and accepted, and you shared your vulnerability, and you shared the steps that you're taking. I so appreciate that. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's great chatting with you.
Yes, this was such a great show. Thank you so much again for coming on the show.
Can I share just one more thing before we go?
Yes, absolutely.
In April, I'm going to be hosting a series of webinars, masterclasses, and so I'd encourage your listeners. I don't know when this is going to be airing, but if you'd like to take part in a masterclass, hop on over to my website at stephenhart.com/masterclass and sign up for one of those classes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and I love every bit of it. Thank you again.
Thank you.